Hi.
Hello, my darling. Mwah.
Would you mind if I actually jumped into like how we met? Because I think that's a funny story.
Yeah, of course. Yes, please talk about how we met. This is like where the story that we're going to talk about today is born
Yeah.
from in relationship trauma. And I think that is a perfect way to start getting into that conversation.
Yeah. Everyone here joining, my name is Tiffany and Tiffany Harnsongkram, and I'm tri-national French American Thai, and and I met Danielle here, who is his all over the who was has been all over the states. In fact, maybe you can introduce yourself really quickly.
Yeah, I'm Danielle Sunberg, and I am a Usui Reiki master and transformational coach based out of Austin, Texas. But as Tiffany mentioned, traveled the globe. I was formerly an attorney and gave it up from extreme dissatisfaction. And with a backpack, just traveled the world, 6 continents, 14 countries in about a year and a half. And in one of those spots, met Tiffany.
Yeah, so the story begins in Morocco, where we were at this event, which was kind of the inaugural event of the Vortex community. And Vortex is essentially leaders, global leaders in whatever field, but people who really want to be transformative, cutting edge, kind of out of the box, and combining all of these aspects of ourselves as well that we're going to talk about today is the emotional, the spiritual, the mental, all of those things. And so we were on this week-long transformation journey in the Atlas Mountains. And the week that we were there was my court date, my divorce court date. And I had to make the decision of whether or not I was going to actually physically attend my own divorce finalization or if I was going to go to this retreat. And it was like an absolutely nerve-wracking decision for me to make because the court the court system and the whole court procedure held such high importance for me, and it was such a high stress thing that finally I had to choose myself, and I had to choose my own well-being, and give it up to I mean just have faith, just know that whatever was meant to happen would happen. So I was actually hiking with Danielle in the Atlas Mountains when my divorce went through. So that was,
That's a big,
and
big
I
moment.
love your story, I love your story, Danielle, of how you had this entire transformation journey. I think it'd be really interesting for people to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm sure a lot of you can relate to the idea of being in a life that you feel rather just like complacent or stuck in, or a job that just like, pays the bills and doesn't give you any more satisfaction than the check that it affords you. And so for me, I had traveled through this professional path my whole life, very, traditional, linear, just go to law school and become a lawyer and work at a firm and the whole gig. And the more that I achieved, I found the more I was upset and depressed, actually. And everybody looked at me like, wow, you won. I had respect, I had prestige, I had the salary, I had the
Yeah.
career. And everyone was reflecting back at me, this person that should have been really happy. And I just was inside myself, like, so not happy. And I decided that it must be me. Like, I must be the person who is sick because I don't have the same feeling that everyone else seems to have about me. And so, what do? We go to a doctor. I went to a therapist and a doctor, and, it's like, I'm depressed. I don't know what to do with my life. And of course, they prescribed me drugs. And so I was faced with going on some SSRIs and antidepressants, anti-anxiety medication. And I had this moment of clarity that what I thought was depression and a pathologized sickness was actually a huge warning. It was just a clue. It was this big clue
Mm,
that there was
yeah.
more inner growth that I was about to embark on, that I needed to do the next stage of my development, that I thought I had gotten to the top of this big mountain by getting this law job. And that wasn't really the peak I thought it was. And there was way more that I needed to grow in different dynamic areas that Western culture just simply doesn't value. But inside me, there was a clue saying, go do it. So I left. I had a big federal trial in St. Louis, 3 weeks, with a client who was facing $6 billion judgment. And
Oh,
the
wow.
day yeah, I know, it was insane. The day we
Jeez.
won and we got the jury decision back that he basically didn't have to pay. The partner called me and was like, I'm going on vacation. I'm wiped. I'll see you when I get back. And I was like, actually, no, you won't. I'm quitting.
That's such
And
a
that
good
was it.
story.
Yeah. And I had no idea what I was going to do next. I had no idea where I was going to
Yeah.
land. And I find for people that tends to be a really big reason not to leave, because if you don't know
Mm-hmm.
where they're going, it's hard to imagine leaving. And I totally get that. But for me, the risk of staying was greater than the risk of leaving, because that depression was like too big. So I left and traveled the world, figuring out what it meant to like really be me and embody Danielle and being happy. And along the way, you know, discovered Eastern energy modalities and really understood fundamentally more about the way human nature works and what it means to be human when we're free to actually be. And it was along this journey that I got invited to this Morocco summit, and where I met Tiffany.
Mm-hmm.
And she was going through her own, you know, chrysalis opening with her
Yeah.
divorce. And like, just meeting you and hearing this insane story about your relationship and what was going on with your divorce, I was just like, I don't know if I would have been as strong as you in that same situation. I'm so impressed with everything that you did to carry yourself through the trauma and just the experience. And I think that, you know, since we're talking about that today and relationship trauma and carrying pain in our bodies and how to, first of all, know that we're doing it, how does it impact our lives, and how do we liberate ourselves from it? You should share your story about your relationship situation with your divorce.
Yeah, it's funny. It feels so long ago now because once you open that chrysalis, like once you let go of it and you don't know where you're going and you head off into the adventure of, complete discovery and creation, I mean, so much happens. Like my life doesn't look at all like it did, a few years back. And the divorce started about 8 years ago. But so, well, essentially I married quite young. And early on in my marriage, I'll tell you, like the first exposure that I had to this concept of energy was I was really interested in medicine, and I took a course to become a soma neuromuscular integration therapist, and I had a practice in Seattle. So when I had been studying that course and we were going through anatomy and we were treating people, we were told that when we were working on people on their fascia, physically, like massage and like physical manipulations to get them realigned, that sometimes they would have emotions coming out. And we were supposed to know, first of all, what to do with those emotions, but also why they were there. And we had studied something called molecules of emotion, which was a research done by Candace Pert. And she was, she was, because she passed away recently, as a neuroscientist and pharmacologist. And she's one of the people that discovered the opiate receptors in the brain. So her research essentially, what she discovered was that our body is our subconscious mind, because the emotions were stored throughout our whole body and not just in our brain. And it wasn't simply a matter of chemicals and chemical receptors, as we like to think of it, like, oh, you have the dopamine and you've got the receptor and they link together like Lego blocks. And then all of a sudden you've got happiness happening in your brain, right? It's not that simple. She was talking about how, well, really our neuroreceptors, first of all, are not dominant in our brain. Actually, these cells, the glial cells or microglial cells, and I won't get too much into it, but they're transferring energy constantly and they're vibrating. And all of these cells are vibrating. So the neuroreceptors are vibrating, and also these whatever other things that can be received by the receptors are vibrating. So you've got viruses, you've got, bacteria. I mean, coronavirus is obviously one of those things that some people get, some people don't. Some people get really badly, some people don't. It's a matter of these receptors. And also emotions are some of these things that the receptors can get or not get, depending on how they're moving and vibrating. And our emotions, our thoughts, the way we are in life is what's causing the vibrations to go one way or the other. So it's our neural system, our nervous system is essentially filtering what we feel in life, what we experience in life, what we see in life, and it's filtering it by all of these movements. And so we didn't talk about energy in those terms, in those courses, but I had the concept that, we store things in our bodies, and our emotions are really important to our biology. Obviously, it's the body-mind connection. What Candace Pert was saying was there is no body-mind. It's like, it's the same thing. There's no connection. It is the same thing because our neurons actually start within our bone marrow. They travel through our blood. They go up to our brain, and then they become neurons. So this whole time they're circulating these emotions throughout our body, and then they become part of our brain structure. So it was super interesting. And then fast forward many, many years to me living in Thailand, having 2 daughters, being in a marriage that was, I don't even know how to describe it, because it was almost like, my ex-husband thought I was his employee somehow. I had grown up very religious. I had put myself in this role of stay-at-home mother and really trying to fit the prescription of this, I don't know what, Virgin Mary mother. I don't know what I was being, but I just, trying to be perfect, this lily white mother, and feeling miserable. So going back to like some of the emotions that you were feeling, like I was expecting, I was supposed to be happy. I was expecting this was how people felt fulfilled. Finally having children, having a beautiful life. We had, we were living on a tropical island. We had a flourishing business. I had 2 gorgeous daughters. The family was doing well. Everything on the outside looked fantastic. And I was absolutely miserable because I was withering away. Like my spirit was withering away. So I decided to leave, and it was like an act of desperation. I didn't know where I was going, didn't have the plan forward, nothing, but I knew that if I didn't leave, I was going to be dying. So I left. And then essentially my ex-husband was like, took it very, very hard and decided to wage war, because that's what the concept was, I think, in his mind of what divorce was. As his parents had a highly conflictual divorce. And as much as I wanted to keep things friendly and for our families to remain united as a family, despite us breaking apart as a couple, he wasn't having it. So it turned into, literally, just every possible attack that could have happened. Custody of my children was the hardest part of it, but complete wiping away of all the financials, taking over control of the company. I was left with nothing. We moved to France, and I was there in the countryside trying to co-parent with him, but not having any income, taking care of the 2 daughters, which he was fighting for custody for. And it was an incredibly stressful situation, because on top of the recent move to France for the girls' education, my father had passed away and my mother had cancer. So it was essentially the coming down of everything, which also instigated a religious, I want to say, deconversion. It was stepping away from the religious structure that I grew up with. And so I had a crisis of the soul, a crisis of the spirit. And now looking back on it, through everything we're going through with COVID, I feel lucky to have done it then, because I can't imagine doing all that on top of COVID, on top of what's happening politically around the world, on top of climate change. So, my heart really goes out to people who are going through something like a divorce in the midst of this climate, because at least I had time to really process, heal, and get to a good plateau, or a good level, at least, before having to deal with everything going on here. So, but speaking energetically, all of those events, I felt them in my body, and I knew that they were in my body, and I knew that they were in the way I was vibrating, if I can say, the being that I was emitting. So, you hear about law of attraction and how the way you are is attracting things to you or repelling things from you. I really felt that, like when I was in the depths of despair, or if I was in the dark night of the soul, I knew that I was blocking good things from coming to me, because I had like a barrier against good things coming to me. And I didn't know what that was. I was trying to work it out energetically. And also because I was holding on to so much, it's like that resistance of just carrying really, really heavy things, and knowing that I was heavy walking through life, just really, really heavy. So I knew I had to let go of some of those things. And my first experience with a Reiki healer was when I had been, thanks for that, Tracy. It's massive, right? I was planning a conference in London, and I was there working, and I knew that I had to be like full energy, full on for the conference the next day. And in the realization that like I had a hard time breathing because my heart was so heavy. I felt it in my diaphragm. I was all pinched up. And it was almost like I had one of those like fat sumo suits on, and that sumo suit was just full of like pain and heaviness. And I knew I had to get rid of it. So out of desperation, I'm looking on the internet like, oh my gosh, is there like an energy healer somewhere in London? And I ordered one into the hotel. I was like, wow, this is really desperate, because like a single woman, ordering somebody to her hotel, it's a man, like, what am I doing? But I knew I had to do it. And he came in, and an hour and a half later, I was like, so light, so easy. I had the best sleep. I mean, it was incredible. And I didn't understand what he did. He didn't say a word, But I felt like completely different after that Reiki session. And then after that, my interest grew, but I've never really studied it like you have. So that's why I'm still very curious, as to how it all works and why it all works.
Wow. I mean, thank you for sharing that, number one. And, number two, we haven't even gotten into like the really, highlight traumatic moments, if you're willing to share them about your experience with the divorce, with him leaving, taking the kids and going to another country and your experience with that. But all of that creates drama in the body. And like you said, and experiencing it in the breath, like what are the signs that you're having this experience where you're holding on to pain in your body? You're having some difficulty with breathing, right? Because our breath is like one internal GPS, basically, that everything is flowing. And when we can't get a good breath, there's constriction. And you just, extrapolate that out basically to there's constriction in my body, which means I'm kinked up, which means there's something there that isn't allowing me to flow free. And usually that is pain. And so there's breath, there's just kind of feeling like itchy in your skin. Like sometimes when, you're just out of a bad moment and you're feeling angry or frustrated or whatever, sometimes I just want to like rip my skin off. And I don't know if you've ever had that feeling, but it is just like, I just want to be anywhere but in this body, because this body feels so bad to be in right now.
Is that an expression in English? Because it is in French.
Oh, is it?
Like,
what's the expression?
people say you feel good in your skin, or he's bad in his skin, when somebody's all, like agitated and uncomfortable, and they call them bad in their skin. That's funny.
So interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's not an expression, but it makes perfect sense. But that's what I would interpret it to mean. And, then there's just, I mean, there's just so many ways you can experience feeling the pain in your body. It usually comes through emotion, right? And feeling just like blech, just like bad in your skin. And there's, anger, frustration, resentment, sadness, all of that. And that it's in your body because what's actually happening in the moment is you're eating dinner. You're watching TV. You're playing with your kid. You're not actually experiencing anything traumatic in the moment. And yet you're still feeling all of those heavy feelings, which means that they're living in you. They're taking up residence and they're carrying energy inside of you, even though there's nothing happening in the moment that should make you feel angry. Like the chicken that you're eating isn't making you angry. It's something else is living in you, right?
Yeah. So
that's like some just, a couple of ways to think about, am I carrying this around with me? And it can feel so heavy. You're right. That sumo suit is a perfect way to think about it. It's just like this extra dense layer around you, for sure. Absolutely. And so it sounds like it really impacted your life because of what you felt like you were drawing to you with this mental, emotional, physical perspective that was not like vibrant and joyful and what you wanted.
Yeah, completely. And I mean, you want to feel good, you want to feel good wherever you are, and you want to feel like you're moving forward, or like you're understanding what's happening. And I think having all of that, emotional, I want to call it like feedback or static, because it's almost like chaotic. All of these things are bouncing around, and they're messing up your signal. Like, so I wasn't able to really see clearly. I felt like when I was interpreting what was happening in my life, I didn't have clarity on it. And it wasn't until I had gotten rid of a lot of that emotional static within me, and and I went to you for a session as well after Morocco, that was really illuminating, and clearing all of those out put me really in touch with the present moment, what I was handling right then and there, without having to handle everything that had happened before, because it was a clear signal. Then I could tune into other people's signals, and I knew what was going on with them. And I was like, holy crap, they've got a big sumo suit on. They are bouncing chaos all over the place, because you can see it resonating off of people, like what they're carrying around. But when you have your own, static going on, it's difficult to tune into what's happening with other people.
Yeah. So animals actually have a way of naturally moving energy through their bodies so that they don't hold on the way humans do. And so, like, if you have ever seen animals fight, after a fight, like if the dogs, get into a little fight, a little scuff, afterwards they kind of shake it off. They like literally just go and shake it off, you know, and then they move on with life. And that is their bodies moving this energy out so that it's not stuck. But exactly what you're saying, this like static bouncing around, reverberating inside of us, it's like in a pinball machine and there's no way out, and it just keeps moving around because we don't know how to get it out of us, and it just keeps living inside of
Yeah.
our bodies. So should we go through some ways to
Yeah.
move
Yeah.
the energy out?
Definitely. I think it would be really helpful for a lot of people. And
Yeah,
everyday life, actually, just everyday life, like everything that's
for
going on.
sure. I mean, there's ways that are more like just go stand in nature, put your feet on the grass, and just visualize the energy getting sent back into the earth. And I mean, that's one method. Another method is to just go dance, like how dogs shake, like go dance it out. And people say it, and
That's
we
what
kind
I
of like
do.
roll our eyes, like, oh yeah, go move, like that's stupid. But it actually is exactly what animals do, so it works. That's why exercising works for a lot of people. You know, just
Yeah.
getting that movement out of your body is processing the energy out. Um,
Yeah.
Mentally, there are some ways to shift your perspective around so that you can just naturally allow energy to flow out without really like doing anything about it. And one is non-judgment, just
Mm.
allowing whatever happened when you were trying to survive or in survival mode now to self-soothe yourself, just like reaching for, even if it's like a pint of Ben and Jerry's and you're not proud of it and you ate the whole thing and that's what you needed in the moment to calm the mind, calm the body. Like, great, you had a tool that you used. So don't go back later and judge yourself for it, because all that does is creates a shame cycle, and that creates energy and life to the shame, which is on top of the actual thing that happened that caused you to want to eat the Ben and Jerry's in the first place. So now
Yeah.
you're piling on shame on top of the actual experience, and that's all going to live in your body. So let go of any judgment that you have about the way that you're handling yourself when you're just coping, because coping is the goal. And like, congratulations that you're doing it in the best way that you can in the moment. And of course, once you're outside of the moment, you could probably cope better because you're not in it anymore. So you're like, oh, why did I reach for the pint of Ben and Jerry's?
Hmm.
Well, in the moment, that was what was available to you. That was your best tool. So no need later to then go back and create more drama around the situation. That's number one. Number
Yeah.
two is um, really permission to feel the pain, because there's a quote I love by Rumi. I'll see if I get this right. The cure to pain is in the pain,
Mm-hmm. Totally.
right?
Yeah.
You can't suppress it.
Yeah.
You can't go around it. And giving yourself permission to really sit with it is the key to letting it go, right?
Yeah. That's kind of what we did in our Reiki session too, when you were taking me through it, like you were walking me through it.
Yeah, and part of that is with space to see it, see the pain from a distance and not be attached to it. Like, ugh,
Mm-hmm.
I feel this terrible sadness over my divorce, and it is taking up my entire body, and I cannot get a free moment of peace from my sadness. Okay, well then be with it, and say to yourself, I have sadness. Even just the language shift
Yeah.
can help you get a little space. Instead of saying I am sad, I mean, that's telling yourself that is who you are,
Totally.
right? But saying I have
Mm.
a deep sadness, it now becomes a separate object. It's not a part of you. And so you
Yeah.
can just be with it. You're like, okay, sadness, I'm just going to sit with you. What would you like? Would you like a pint of Jerry's? Like,
Maybe.
whatever.
Maybe a
And give
glass of
it
wine,
time.
maybe.
A glass of
Yeah.
wine,
Yeah.
meditation, a walk in the woods, whatever. So just being with it. We all kind of know by now that suppressing stuff works in the short term, but in the long term, it's just going to come back and bite you.
Yeah. Or you'll get sick or something. Yeah. It'll come out.
Right, because then it lives in your body.
Mm-hmm.
And then exactly what you were talking about, it lives in your cells. It lives in every piece of you and changes your physiology and can make you sick, for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third piece is forgiveness. And that's sometimes the hardest part to swallow, is forgiving the person who has caused you so much pain. Because if you hold them in the perspective that they're the perpetrator and you're the victim, then you remain in a victim role. As long as you
Yeah.
hold the person that causes you pain in a role of, you know, the villain, that
Hmm.
means that you have to be the victim. But if you let go of them being the villain, then you can let go of being the victim. And that whole victim suit you're wearing, you can take off. And all the
Hmm.
energy and emotion that comes with victimhood can be that snake skin that you shed and you move on into your next iteration of freedom from that role and empowerment and taking back your own energy.
That's really true. And I think it's really challenging for situations like mine or for really high conflict situations when you have someone who has done kind of very abusive things and continues to do very abusive things where it's not like a one-off event. I think it's much easier to look at an event and say, okay, I'm going to digest this and forgive this. But then when you move on to, something that's recurring and something that's damaging, your quality of life or whatever it is, it is really, really key. I mean, it was for me to take off that victim suit, as you said, and take complete ownership over my life, whatever was happening, and just see us as two people playing out, whatever we had learned, whatever traumas, whatever pains were happening, and to see what he was doing as playing that out, like as an observer, um, like you said, the detachment of just seeing my reactions or seeing his actions or seeing my actions and seeing his reactions and watching them, dance across the theater of life, and being able to kind of make a different choice and see myself above all of this, back and forth cause and effect kind of stuff, but seeing the bigger picture of the pains that were behind it.
Yeah.
And that's one question I wanted to ask you regarding that one is how is generational pain part of what you do in Reiki, like things that get passed down from parents? Because I know, both of my parents and his parents come from pretty traumatic backgrounds, and I think that had a lot to do with what was happening in our relationship.
That's a really interesting question, because the whole idea of passing down generational pain, ancestral baggage or energy from other lifetimes of ours, like it gets pretty wooey. And like,
Mm.
I can't say that I know whether it's real or not real, right? Because when we enter different states of consciousness through meditation, walking in the woods, Reiki, plant medicine, whatever it is, that reality becomes more subjective. We have better access to things like seeing, okay, generational pain is real from the perspective of who I am right now, having just done X.
Mm.
And so I can't sit here and say that it is or it isn't a real thing. It's more like in the eye of the beholder, right? It's in whatever perspective that you have when you come to me or to whatever energy modality you're using. If you're coming with the belief that you have generational pain, then you do. And it's
I
something that
see.
that
Yeah.
I can work with, but I wouldn't say to you, oh, you're carrying this from your parents and their parents, and we need to go heal lifetimes
Mm.
from your like 4 generations ago in order for you to be clear. Because it only matters if you're carrying it alive in your body. If their
Hmm.
pain isn't in you, then it's irrelevant.
Yeah. I feel
Because,
that. Yeah.
yeah,
Totally, because there's so many pains that could have come from my lineage that didn't. It's almost like there were certain things, perhaps certain pinpointed things, and in my relationship, it was more of taking on a codependent role. Um, but it wasn't all the trauma. There's so many traumas that could have been passed on that weren't. So it's interesting to know, what we have to work out in our own lives and what doesn't affect us. And like I have a sister, the things that she has are completely different than the things that I have. So, we had the same upbringing, we had the same parents. So
yeah, you can think about it like you have your DNA, your genetics, your hard
yeah,
coded what makes you you, and then
yeah.
you have your epigenetics, which
Hmm.
are the things that nurture can change about the way you express your genetics, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you might have a genetic predisposition for diabetes, but the way you live your life, you know, you work out, you don't eat too much sugar, simple things like that, changes your epigenetics to dial down the expression of your diabetes gene so that you never actually get diabetes. So if you
Yeah.
can, you know, just analogize that basically to what you're just talking about with generational pain, ancestral trauma that, you know, gets passed down, like we get passed down DNA from our parents, we can get passed down their pain. But depending on your life, you can dial it up and dial it down and express it or not express it and attribute it to your grandparents or your great grandparents or not.
Yeah. Okay. So I wanted to ask, you know, for people who would be going through my course or people who are just separating and divorcing, um, when they're in that like initial phase of, oh my gosh, like the whole world is crumbling down. I don't know what I'm going to do. Like still in the position of being in between of trying to have a new life, but also trying to leave the old one and reinventing themselves and being a bit terrified and, you know, having everything in limbo and a bit chaotic. Um, what would be your like first approach to helping somebody like that?
I would say that it's really remembering our minds are the last thing to catch up to our energy that's in our body. So, like,
Mm,
when you walk into a room that, like a party, and it's not going well, like, let's say it's a bath party, it's like there is an argument happening and everyone's tense. Like, someone, you know, broke a vase and, like, and you walk in right
yeah,
after and you can feel that there's something going on in the party. You don't know what happened, but your body just knows that there's something. So your
we've all
body
been
knows
there.
things before our mind. Yeah. Or like in, you know, a meeting at work or something. And it's like, oh
Yeah.
God, like what's going on?
Awkward.
Awkward. And you don't know why. You couldn't possibly know why, but your body knows. Your body is sensing all the energy in the room. So then later your mind catches up because you either ask someone what happened or, you know, you look around, you see a broken vase, you know, put two and two together, whatever. Um, so when you're going through the beginning stages of, okay, something in my life needs to change, this isn't the path I want to continue down, and you start correcting your path, but you don't know what that path is going to look like, it's scary, you don't know what maybe support system you have, you like everything is in flux.
Yeah.
That's okay, your mind's the last to catch up, your body knows this is the right way to move, your GPS inside is saying go this way. And your mind doesn't need to know why or what's next or how it's all going to end up, you know, falling. It's not important that your mind knows. Your mind will catch up. Just keep following that
I love
inner
that.
signal that, like, this is
Hmm.
the right move. This is what I need to breathe. This is what I need to feel
Hmm.
happy. And taking it one step at a time, because that's all that we can ever really see, unless we're clairvoyant, which, you know, some of us are. So really, like, all you can see is one step ahead, and one step ahead might be I need to not be married to this person anymore. It might be a big
Mm.
thing without any practical movement forward, and you'll figure that out as you keep following that emotion. Or it could be a little thing like he can't speak to me that way,
Hmm.
whatever it is, right? We don't necessarily need to know in our minds like how it's all going to shake out.
Yeah.
Just following that internal, this is what feels right, this is what feels right, this is what feels right, this doesn't feel right, okay,
Mm.
change, this is what feels right. And you don't need to like know why, you don't need to analyze it.
Yeah, I that completely resonates with the journey that I took and the journey that I take people on too, but it's like it's very difficult to go against our training, I think, in the West because we become so heady. We become so academic that everything has to have reasons why. Everything has to be backed up with research. Everything has to be logical and understandable in an ABCD linear format. Um, Whereas in the East, things kind of go in circles. You know, it's a very
Yeah.
different way of seeing reality instead of one straight line, one square box. It's a lot of circles. And and also growing up religiously too, where you're not supposed to be following your emotions, and you're not supposed to be following the flesh, because it will lead you astray, and it will make you do, naughty things. Like, so I spent so much time programming myself to follow what I should do and what the right thing to do was in a religious estimation, but also in a social one, of trying to use my mind to know the right thing to do, and be reasonable and logical instead of emotional, and making emotional decisions that I was going to regret later. And the entire deprogramming of that through my divorce, I learned that nearly every time I was following my mind, I ended up in confusion, if not a mess, as opposed to when I was following like my gut. And I would say I paid attention to my emotions, and I followed my gut, and like trying to learn the difference between a passing emotion and between what was really true for me was really important. And that was a distinction. But also, as you said, like the little signals, when you're just like, oh, that doesn't feel right, or there's something off about this. Like, I'm not totally clear. I'm not totally comfortable. I'm a little bit nervous, and you don't know why, because everything looks clean and clear on the outside. It looks like the right decision to make, but you're just like, every time I went down that path, I regretted it.
Yeah, look, like that's the path I went down with being a lawyer, until that feeling got so big and so great that it was depression. But there's little
Yeah.
warning signs along the way that we can, ignore, wave away, because everything rationally seems so right. And I mean, look, like we separate ourselves from animals because we have these logical, amazing thinking brains and the capacity
Mm-hmm.
to do amazing things with them. Like, oh my God, I'm so glad that I have this brain. But we have to remember that it's our servant, right? And not our
Yeah.
master. And it's not, brain,
Yeah.
tell me the rational thing to do so that I can follow your lead. It's let your mind be a tool. So if you feel that you are satisfied in life or dissatisfied in life, allow your brain to help you figure out what's going to be more satisfying or take you away from being dissatisfied.
Mm. Yeah. And you were alluding to earlier, like kind of the magic that happens when you're actually just, moving forward without necessarily knowing what's going to happen, or, having a clear logical path, but just allowing yourself to follow your intuition or your knowing and your emotions forward, and things just come about and things happen. Like your path is an amazing one as well. Like when I met you in Morocco, I was like, holy crap, like what is all this wisdom coming out of her mouth? She's so, I was thinking, wow, she's so young and so low key. Like you were just, very nonchalant, laid back, you weren't talking much, but when you would talk, it was like, ooh, truth bomb. And it was
Thank
so
you.
clear. And I don't know how far along you were in your journey at that point, but I know that you had something massive had happened to get you to that point of clarity.
So thank you. So I'll share this amazing analogy from another woman who we both met at Vortex in Morocco, who is now my coaching mentor, Jenny. Shout out.
Hey, Jenny, shout
And
out.
and basically, when the mind quiets down, when we become less attached and involved in all of the worry and the swirl of anxiety and stress and following all these thoughts that live and end up living in our bodies, when we give that up or we make space, we can actually tap into that deeper inner wisdom. We make
Mm.
room for that genius that lives in all of us
Mm-hmm.
to come say hello. But when we're trapped in that cloud, that static reverberation,
Yeah.
there's no room for that aha. Because you know what's right for you. No one else can tell you what's right for you. We disempower ourselves
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
time by having other people decide for us what we should do. What do you think? What do you think I should do? And they list their rational, logical, reasonable reasons. And we go,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think that's right. And I weigh that more than I weigh this. And so I'll do that. And we just ignore the fact that we have our own inner wisdom. So the
Yeah.
analogy is that if you think, I can use this, but it's a bad prop. If we imagine this as a water bottle, and the bottle, this cup, is our mind, and we fill it, with water about halfway. This is our clear mind, like right when you wake up from sleeping and you're just super clear.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And then let's say we pour grains of sand into this bottle. Each grain of sand is a thought. And we just
Mm-hmm.
have thoughts. It's human nature. You can't get rid of
Yeah.
them.
Can't stop it.
You can't stop them. They flow in, they flow out. So we have this bottle of water, our mind, and we have all these grains of sand in them. And when we get stressed out, it's like shaking the bottle of water. Vigorous shaking. Just, ah. What happens when you
Yeah.
shake a bottle of water?
Yeah.
It gets super murky,
Yeah.
right?
A
There's no
tornado of
clarity.
sand. Yeah.
You cannot see clearly, literally, metaphysically. So how do you get the bottle to settle?
Mm. That sounds like
Just put it down,
meditation. Oh,
right?
put it
Just put it
down.
down.
Right.
You
Yeah.
just put the bottle down, and what happens? The sand will
Mm-hmm.
naturally settle to the bottom. The water will naturally rise to the top, and that's clarity again. So what we're trained to do is think our way to problem solving. Like, I'm stressed
Totally.
out, I need to get a
Yeah.
divorce, or like whatever the issue is. How do I do this? How do I manage it? What do I do with my kids? What do I do with my house? What do I do? I want to live here. All these things. And we're just stuck in that swirl of that shaking that water bottle so vigorously.
Mm-hmm.
And we're never going to find the answer that way because it's murky. But if we can just
Yeah.
put the bottle down, go to sleep, take a nap, go for a walk, watch TV, just do something that allows all of that cloud to just settle.
Mm-hmm.
And then idea,
Mm-hmm.
solution. Like that's why all these things
Magic.
that are great
Yeah.
happen in the shower. Exactly. The magic happens when we aren't banging our head against a wall trying to force the magic.
Yeah. Totally. It's interesting to see what happens when it settles because sometimes I'll be working on a thing, like I'm always in self-development and discovery, and I'll be reading something and I know that there's truth there. I know that it's right, but it's like not getting in. Like somehow it's not connecting, it's not digesting. And I know that if I just go about my life, forget about it, leave it behind and just live, it's going to like by osmosis somehow be able to get in, and then I'll get to it a couple days later or 2 weeks later and go, oh, okay, now I've got it, because I've had the experience of it, because I saw it somewhere in life happening. It's like the embodiment of whatever my mind was struggling with is has come
Yeah.
about. And that for me is a struggle too in creating the course, because when you have a course of truths or things that you want to teach about divorce in my case, but it could be anything about reclaiming your life, about self-love, about all of these things, we have these exercises and we have these thoughts and we have this learning that we can do, but there's the whole piece behind about like actually listening to yourself, knowing what to apply when, and taking the space to actually let it sink in, let it digest, and to not always be working our way towards something, because it is like, it's staying up here, and
Yeah.
you're not becoming it, you're not being it. So that's one that's difficult to communicate. It's easier to model in yourself than to communicate to somebody, that, oh, okay, you need to read this chapter and then you just need to like chill for 3 days and go have fun. And
Yeah. I think the biggest thing for people to learn is that we are not our thoughts.
yeah.
And it's one thing to say, okay, yeah, sure, but to like really get it and like have that live in our body is a huge game changer.
Mm-hmm.
And that allows all the dominoes to sort of start to fall and everything to click and things to become easier in terms of letting go of trauma, letting go of pain, feeling empowered. Because when we know that we're not our thoughts, we're this deeper awareness that lives inside a body that has thoughts, then we
Yeah.
can release ourselves from the attachment of all the drama that our thoughts create and say, okay, that's the play of life happening,
Yeah.
but there's also something else happening, and it's a deeper spiritual whatever
Mm.
awareness, and that is equally real. And when you can see that, it just makes all the drama just like quiet a little bit more
Mm.
and quiet. And it can still be there and you can still have to go through the experience, but you have a little bit more grace almost to deal with it because of that space that you've given yourself.
Oh yeah. It like I'm looking at the time here. We've got a few minutes left, but it's like going, for me in the case of my divorce, like a 5 alarm fire to like a, this is stuff that I have to deal with, but I'm okay. Me in myself, I'm fine. Whatever happens in that fire, in that circus happening, it's great if it turns out well. If it doesn't turn out well, I'm still here. I'm still okay. I'm still me. And I've learned all these like amazing life lessons from whatever was happening over there, but I'm not going to identify with what's happening. That's not
Right.
me, like
Right.
not defined by that, shaped, built by that, but not defined by all of these doings, as opposed to my being, which was the big discovery for me too, was like not identifying with all of that stuff, because I don't know how many labels on myself, but they were pretty important labels, and I had to let them all go. And now feeling so free and liberated. But before the time is up, for the people that don't know what Reiki is or have never done it, would you mind just like giving
Yeah.
an explanation of like how it goes, how you go about it, what it looks like actually?
Yeah, so Reiki is actually a Japanese word. It's a Japanese energy modality, and it means life source energy. So the ki in Reiki is similar to chi, if you know chi in
Yeah.
Chinese, or prana in Sanskrit, and it's all fundamentally around the same concept that we are more than our thoughts. We have energy that animates us, and in our cells, in our body, in our minds, in our emotions, it's all connected, and our energy is ultimately the same as the energy of a tree. The energy of you and me is comes from the same place, because if you want to break it down
Mm,
physically, like, we're all just atoms that have neutrons and protons and electrons, and inside of those can be broken down into further tiny particles. And so
yeah.
ultimately, like, we're all made of the same substance, and we're all connected through this quantum field of energy. And so what Reiki does is taps into that field to facilitate the movement of the energy that lives in your form, your body. So it allows
Hmm.
that flow, that balance, that ease to come back to the person. And another way I like to think about it is, it is it is something that turns up your parasympathetic nervous system. So
Yeah.
we were talking about nervous system before, and your
Right.
sympathetic nervous system is your fight or flight.
Hmm.
That's your stress response. That's, there's a bear in the woods and I gotta run, and so your whole body goes on alert and you need to survive. And in modern society, we don't really understand that there's no bear, and that it's just a project due the next
Yeah.
day, and we have the same
Yeah.
response, right? So
Constantly, like all the time, we're on emergency mode. Yeah.
all the time we're in the chronic sympathetic nervous system, and that
Yeah.
leads to so many physical issues. So when we crank up our parasympathetic nervous system, it turns down fight or flight. It tells our body we're safe. It allows us to heal. It allows our body to rejuvenate, improve itself. All the things like, let's say you have a cold and you go to bed and then you wake up the next morning feeling a little better. Well, that's because overnight you were in parasympathetic nervous system. There was nothing to stress out about when you were
Mm,
sleeping. And so your body could go to work healing itself. That's what anything that does that kind of switch on your nervous system is allowing you to do, which is Reiki, meditation, again, all of those great things.
yeah.
And so it kind of looks like, you could call it a massage, or like, you get on you lay comfortably on a bed or
Yeah.
a chair or whatever, and the practitioner, whether they're present or remote, because again, since we're talking about a quantum field of energy, actually being physically present is irrelevant. So it works the same way. And if you're in the same room, though, the person is just kind of hovering near you like a massage therapist would, and moving around your body, but they may not actually be touching you.
Hmm.
And when it's remote, it's sort of the same thing, but you're not actually there.
Yeah. So I've experienced both in person and remote, and I can attest to that. It's very similar, if not the same, but I'm wondering why, like, going to a Reiki practitioner is more effective than like doing a meditation by yourself at home or just trying to chill out, taking a bath.
Oh, okay. A meditation is such a wonderful modality, but it's all about the mind again. We're staying in the mind. We're focusing on don't think, clear our
Mm,
thought, visualize
yeah.
this practice so that I let go of my thought. And we're staying up here.
Mm,
And so a lot of people don't really like it because they don't actually feel calmer afterward. They feel like they put in a lot of effort to meditate. And it's not so easy for a lot of people. It doesn't really
that's
resonate.
true.
But with
Yeah.
Reiki, like a massage, you just get to be like, okay, you do it for me. Like I'm just gonna lay here and like you do the work, and I'm gonna feel better. I don't want to sit here
Yeah.
and like think about my meditation.
That's so true. It's so easy. You just you just lay and receive.
Yeah,
Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I think it is key, when, like, for me, I had worked out so much stuff in my mind and I was clear. I was like, this is this, that is that. I see what's happening, and yet I still have this little like bit I'm holding on to in my body. So it was really helpful for me. Please tell people how they can get a hold of you and how they can work with you.
So you can follow me at Your Genius Within. And from there, you'll see more about me, my profile, and my website, where I do Reiki and transformational coaching, as well as consulting for companies. And basically, if you are looking to feel empowered, if you're looking to get rid of that extra energy layer, that burden, that heavy weight, or like you're feeling even like everything's okay, but you want to get to that next level and shed that skin that's like complacent, fine, everything's whatever, but like I need to break out and be the amazing person that I am. All of these things are reasons that we want to do Reiki or get coaching. And I would love to chat with you about whatever it is that you are going through, what you're feeling, what it is that you want to remove from your life, what it is you want to get in your life. And it's just my favorite thing to do. It's exactly what my purpose is. And I wouldn't have ever been able to say that when I was an attorney. And if you had told me that was my purpose, I would have been like, you're crazy. Which is why it's so
Yeah.
important that you don't try and look too many steps ahead. You can only see one step at a time. And that's really a gift, because if someone had said, Danielle, you're going to leave law
Yeah.
and go be a Reiki practitioner and a coach, I would have been like, that sounds ridiculous, and I would have rejected it totally. But so happy to be here and with you. And my website is my name, Danielle Sunberg. Um, it's SUN like the sun, B as in boy, ERG as in good.com, DanielleSunberg.com. And we can chat for, however long you like. Just my favorite thing, Tiffany. I'm so excited to chat with you again.
Yeah, you know what? I was thinking, because of all the kind of modalities and experiences that you've been exposed to have Reiki like be the one that you focused on is saying a lot already, because I know what a thinker you are. So that's part of my curiosity too, is like, how did you focus on this one? But I think companies, I mean, how amazing would it be to have somebody coming in, coming from the body and energetic point of view with the company leadership? Because, I talk about organizational development regularly with people, and talking about leadership and how, leadership is embodied. And oh my gosh, like that would be an amazing thing, to have people shedding all of that fight or flight and anxiety in the way they're showing up and
Yeah.
leading a company. So yeah, great, really good idea to give that service. And I'll put the details in the comments so people can find you and get a hold of you. And as for me, I have a course called Thriving Through Divorce, which is a 7-module course, and it's really built for people who are, conscious, like building themselves really into transforming themselves through the catalyst of what you go through in a divorce. And you may be doing it with somebody else on the other side, an ex or someone who's who you're separating from, who also wants to have a conscious divorce and also wants to grow through the experience, or you might be doing it by yourself. And in my case, having somebody who is more in a conflict position. But regardless, you know, you can still apply a lot of this knowledge to your own life in unlocking and unraveling the sweater of all the labels and boxes and limitations that you've put upon yourself in order to rise and grow and spread your wings even bigger than you had before, which was my experience through my divorce. And I really hope that we transform the way we think about getting divorced and the stigma that we have around it, and see it as the enormous growth opportunity that it is. That would be my wish for the planet. And also just relationship, you know, how we see each other and how we see our own beings and how we respect our own beings is really important to me. So we both have a Facebook group. I have a Facebook group called From Divorce to Destiny, and I'm in your Facebook group, which is amazing. So you can join us there as well. And I'll post this video onto those Facebook groups for those of you who didn't catch the beginning. You can catch everything and the tips, especially that Danielle shared about how you can move energy through your body. So that would be really great. But go ahead and get in touch with either of us if you're looking to grow and heal in any of the ways that we're offering and embodying right now. So, and very thankful to all of you who have joined in, and we will see you next time then.
Perfect. Yeah. You know,
Yeah.
divorce, we apply to relationships because literally it's a legal term, but you could also just be divorcing the old version of yourself. And that is a grieving
So true.
in its own way. And your course, I think, can be applied to all of those situations, regardless of what you're going through. So it's beautiful that you offer that. And I can't wait to talk to you again, Tiff. Mwah.
Yeah. Love talking to you. Thanks so much for doing this. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.